Welcome back to the Praying and Slaying podcast, a Light the Fire Outdoors production. This week, Aaron takes you on a journey to western Colorado on his quest for his first elk with a bow. It's a high elevation story complete with whiskey, yellow jackets, and sleepless nights. With that, let's hit the road with Aaron on this story. What is up, everybody? Thank you for checking back into the Praying and Slaying podcast. I know it's been a while. Jeremy and John and I have all had some pretty crazy schedules, all busy with work and everything else, but it sounds like things are finally clearing back up. And then we've also got some new things coming to you guys to keep some podcasts coming on the regular. So today I'm kicking that off with a little bit of a different format here. Kind of some ideas I've had for a while, but basically, guys, we're going to be telling hunting stories like we always do. Sometimes I'll be solo. Whenever we can get a chance, we'll get John and Jeremy on, and then we'll reflect on the hunting story in a godly way after the podcast is over. So today, man, I'm coming at you guys pretty dang excited about this one because I was lucky enough to go down to Colorado and shoot my first ever archery bull elk. Beautiful. I'm not great at scoring animals. And for those of you who've listened to the handful of podcasts where we've talked about antlered animals, score isn't always the most important thing to me, but being out there in the woods and just getting after it. And of course, putting meat in the freezer, man, is what it's all about for myself to be able to take an animal. But man, a beautiful 260 estimated inch bull. Haven't got a chance to measure him yet. Did drop him off at the taxidermist though. And I'm going to get a European mount done on that guy. So pretty darn awesome, heck of a bull to do it on. And man, the story is just as short and sweet, I guess, as that synopsis of the whole thing. So I'm going to tell that story today to you guys about my first ever archery bull elk. And it all takes place down in Colorado. So let's jump in the truck and head on down to Colorado. All right, guys. So for this hunt, I had planned on 7 days of archery hunting. Actually, I was planning on taking some good time off. It's been a pretty stressful time at work. It can only be so stressful when you're working and doing something you love. But man, we've got a new product at Tacticam called the Reveal. I'm sure if you're listening to this podcast and haven't heard about Reveal by Tacticam, you need to pull your head out of a shell because it's the hottest product in the hunting market and it's so hard to get. And then on our end, it's hard to coordinate the demand and keep everybody happy with limited information with today's day and age and the COVID shutdowns of ports and freight and all the BS that's coming along and still carrying on from COVID. So anyway, man, it was time. Hunting season's here. Of course, there's always a big buildup. You start seeing guys getting out in the field while you're sitting there crunching on a computer all day, every day. You really start to feel that itch, man. And I was feeling it. My head was feeling it, and I just needed to get away. So I'm like, dude, you know what? We'll take a break and get after it for a week. So we were just super blessed, man, to be invited down on a private land Colorado elk hunt. Like that, just those opportunities don't just happen. So a little bit of background on that. Like last year, I got invited actually to go on this hunt. And I said, dude, I'm not going to pass that opportunity up. Yeah, let's do it. And the landowner was like, you know what? Or the land manager, sorry, was like, you know what? Why don't you bring your wife down? Let's get her first elk. And I had obviously shot my bull in New Mexico, my very first bull elk in New Mexico that Christmas. And so anyway, it was a pretty exciting time to get her down. Well, the way things shook out is we've actually got this weekend the Air Force Ball. So for those of you, again, that don't know, the Air Force Ball is a once a year occurrence. With COVID last year, I don't think it happened. But anyway, it's a big hoopla. You get in your monkey suit and go down, have a very, very formal dinner, military fashion, and then you get to kind of cut loose at the end and kind of a big morale event for the Air Force. Well, anyway, my wife, as awesome as she is, she's actually coordinating that entire event. So a lot of stress, a lot of things coming up. And of course, this hunt was happening the week before the event week. So she determined that I'm not going to be able to take the week off. And so, okay, Aaron's going by himself. So I actually invited my dad. My dad couldn't get the time off. He's congratulations to him. He is retired from his career at FedEx, ground as an independent contractor. Pretty awesome. But now he works with my mom. They both have kind of expanded the in-home daycare operation up there. And so he couldn't get the time off. And then we went to my father-in-law, who, of course, also could not get the time off. So I think it was just predestined that I was going on this hunt by myself. But regardless, tried to get some other people on it. First time down going to Colorado, and of course being on a property by yourself for a week seemed pretty lonely, but maybe I needed it. So we hopped in the truck Saturday morning. Actually went out and we made a pit stop at one of my trail camera sites here in Montana. Pulled the trail camera because just not going to need it anymore. And yeah, man, hit the road. So it was a 14-ish hour drive, I think, with stops. I took a route that I hadn't previously taken. Normally when I head down through that way, I kind of go down the highway down to Denver and over. But this was on the very far the far west side of Colorado. So we buzzed on down and drove through parts of Idaho. That was pretty awesome. I mean, like 3.5, 4 hours ish into the hunt or into the drive. Had a guy coming down from Idaho with a big bull on his trailer and his 4-wheeler and stuff. So congrats to that dude, whoever you were. Obviously that gets you excited as an elk hunter. You see somebody else already having success. The bulls must be fired up and things are rocking. So that was good to see. Headed on down, got into Utah, drove through Salt Lake City, and then made the buzz on over into Western Colorado. Put me down there right about 8 o'clock. So hopped on the phone with the wife and kind of gave her a status update about where I was, about an hour out from the hotel. So that night I actually got a call right about the time, about 5 o'clock, I guess. Anyway, the land manager, he was coming back from an elk hunt that he was on in a different part of Colorado with a property they're going to start working on and managing. And just super, super nice guy, man. He invited me to stay at his place. I had already booked a hotel room, non-refundable on short notice. So I ended up staying at a hotel down there, got a good plate of fajitas at the local Mexican restaurant. And yeah, just settled in for a night. One last good night of sleep, I guess, was what I thought. And a good hot meal in my stomach, good shower, all that good stuff. And yeah, so 14 hours in the truck by myself. Of course, you got to turn on some good podcasts, listening stuff, and just kind of sets the tone for me when I'm heading out. I like to kind of get in my own zone, and whether it's country music or whether it's podcasts I enjoy or whatever, it's always good to kind of just set your mind straight, shake off the rest of things going on in life, and just get in the zone. So anyway, met the land manager the next morning. We went out, got breakfast. He kind of introduced himself and we got to know each other a little bit. Great guy. Learned a little bit about, the property and the history of it all and how it all came to be. And just really, really cool. These two guys work together. They do outfitting in certain places, but this spot that I was going to be hunting is a very special place for them. It's like a little honey hole, a little slice of heaven that they take some time for themselves away from all the other hustle and bustle of getting hunters and outfitting and guiding done. And they actually go out and this is like their place of solace, which is just a blessing in itself to be able to say, yeah, I got invited to go do something like that. Just super cool. So it's not beat up. There's not a ton of people in and out of it every year. There's no pressure with it. It's just, dude, come out here, clear your mind and have some fun hunting, kind of get back to the roots of it all. So definitely cool to hear about that. After breakfast, we hopped in the trucks and we headed out to hunting camp. So now adrenaline's going a little bit. You get that preseason excitement. If you're anything like me, kind of makes you have to take a dump. I don't know why. Every year, man, that first hunt, that first little bit of excitement, you're heading out to the tree stand for the first time, whatever it is, dude, it hits me like a ton of bricks and I can't help it. But no, I started getting that excited feeling. We headed up through the national forest and man, there was this one section of road, dude, that was like driving on Mars. Like it's red rock, just basically you're literally driving on bedrock and it's all cut out to make a road on, and you're going 5 miles an hour max for like 3 miles. So it takes a while, but anyway, that was kind of fun to see. Just for super rough roads and stuff. We came across a couple guys who were looking for campsites. Felt kind of bad, man. They're pulling trailers over that with buggies and truck beds full of stuff. And you can tell they're in there for a week as well. But, for me, it was a bow and my pack, really. That's all I had to bring. It was pretty sweet. Hunting licenses, a bino harness. I mean, pretty simple hunt. And then you see guys coming in to just load down the hunting camp, man. It's I think we talked about that in an antelope hunting podcast, just the amount of stuff that some people bring along. I know you got to have it, but man, I feel like that adds so much stress. But anyway, I was, very happy that I was driving by those guys and being like, man, yeah, I've got it cut out pretty good here. And I got a super simple setup and just kind of keeping it simple for a week. So we get up to we finally hit some paved or gravel road finally after this big moon drive that we were on. And 10 feet after that, there's the gate to the property. So we hop in there, we get the gate code and everything. And we're in, man. We're at hunting camp now. We've arrived and it's exciting. So we're driving in through all this thick oak brush on this super flat road. And then we just take a nosedive right down into this canyon, and we go down in and end up in this kind of mowed out area, parking area. And right there, man, that's the cabin. That's my home for the next week. And so we get out and just right away, get right to it. There's a lot of things to learn here. This is an off-grid cabin. You know, they have running water, which is awesome. They have electricity, which is awesome. They've got gas, which is awesome, but it's all off grid. So there's a lot of things to make all those comforts of home work, but they are there for you, which is kind of neat. So we get at it. He's showing me all the water supply sources. There's one for an outdoor shower. And then there's also one for the cabin itself that lets you get water to the sinks and stuff like that. So he's showing me all the valves, what you got to do. Making notes as well on, hey, when you leave, when you take off, you're going to be out here by yourself. Make sure this is shut off, that's shut off. This is done this way, that's done that way. So I'm taking a ton of mental notes, making sure that I can leave this place exactly how they want it. And so outdoor shower, super cool. It's got a hot water heater. It's got its own water source as well. So you can, take a hot shower after a couple, long days in the stand. For any of you who've done backcountry hunting or any kind of hunting where you're camping, like, that's probably the worst part about it. It's a lot of physical work, a lot of mental exhaustion, long days, short nights, but man, you'd stink. I mean, it's you're hiking around, it's hot and sweaty, and you just want to shower. So the fact that you've got a shower here to take, one every day if you wanted, I guess, but every other day at a minimum, or at a max. I mean, that's awesome. So pretty cool. And the cabin has some bunk beds in it, so you're not going to be sleeping on the ground, which is awesome. Generator electricity, we went over that. We went over the water for the sink, solar panel to charge up. They've got a battery trailer, which is, if you've ever elk hunted and you've seen an elk if you've seen any animal on the ground, it's all of a sudden it's way more work when you're packing it out than it is during any other part of the hunt. And an elk is 2 to 3 times the size of a big mule deer, easy. So a lot of work there, but these guys have it figured out, man. You've got a solar panel, you charge a battery on the trailer for the 4-wheeler that actually powers a winch. So he's showing me all the intricacies of that, getting it all fired up. And so I kind of do some unpacking. He's running around doing a couple of things or picking up from the last guy he had in there. And then I go in, get my gear all kind of cinched down, packed up, ready. And we throw it on the 4-wheeler for everything I'm going to need for that evening's set. And we head up into the woods. So basically, you go up the other side of the canyon now, and you park at another gate. And then from there, it's game on. It's hunting, moving forward. You walk into this other piece of the property, and this is where the magic happens. They've got a lot of, 2-track roads through there that take you basically to every single place you can hunt. They've got blinds, they've got stands set up, and they've hunted this place for, I think they said like 10 years. So they've got it all laid out. It's figured out. I mean, this is a cool place, man. I mean, it's just the second you cross that gate right there, you just know you're in a really cool place, and it's quiet, it's peaceful. There's animals there, and you're there to experience it more than anything. So it's pretty neat. So we buzz around. He's got some work to do up there. He wanted to check a few stands. He wanted to check some other stuff they had, like they had a couple cameras out they wanted to check and things like that on some other pieces that I wasn't going to be hunting. And so first thing we do is we go right to the stand that he wants me to sit in first. He said, no one's hunted this side of the property, all year. And, we haven't had cameras over there. We don't really know what's going on, but it's always promising. It's always a good spot. I want to start you out here. And then, we got 3 other stand locations I'm going to show you where I think, if you don't see anything after 3 or 4 sits, so essentially a couple of days, move to one of these other spots and kind of make your game plan that way. Or if you hear the elk bugling on a certain part of the property, and they're just not coming through your area, maybe move to one of these other locations. So, I turned my Onyx tracker on. So I had some waypoints and things like that, and buzzed around there. We got, 3 good solid stand options. One of which I know I'd gotten a picture about a week earlier prior to season open that the guy had seen some cows and stuff in, which is kind of neat, cow elk. And anyway, so we buzz on back. Basically, I get asked, hey, dude, you got any questions? If not, I'm out of here. This place is all yours. So that's where the excitement happens, man. I mean, there's elk sign everywhere up there, fresh elk sign, fresh elk tracks. Man, the water, they've got some ponds on the property. So the water was getting hit obviously hard. It's hot that time of year. I mean, this is going to be an elk trip, man. And whether I get one or not, I know I'm in a special place. Hopefully I get to see some, get some on video. And it set the tone, dude. And yeah, so he gave me the final blessing, basically handed me the keys and said, dude, it's all yours. I'm out of here. I'm a phone call away. If you need anything up at the main gate, you can get cell service to call. If you need something, otherwise, enjoy, man. Enjoy our slice of heaven. So with that, I was alone at last. It was amazing being out there, you know, and how quiet everything gets, man. It's when you're alone in the middle of base. I mean, I know it's private property, but it's desolate. It's off grid. It's out there. You're basically surrounded by national forest, and it's just quiet. I mean, it got dead silent. It's almost a weird feeling because you're off grid. I've got enough food for my week. I mean, I basically packed what I'd pack if I was backpacking in the woods. I got some Quest cookies, some Quest chips because they're super light. I got some vitamin packs, some like Thrive Nutrition shake packs. So make sure you're not vitamin deficient or anything like that while you're out there. Plus a bunch of like basically sports drink mix from Wilderness Athlete. I like bringing that as well. Make sure you got those micronutrients to make sure you're not, you know, cramping, that kind of thing if you're hiking. But dude, I mean, the longest walk on this property is like, based on my estimation, to the farthest stand that I plan to hunt. It was like a mile. I mean, and it's flat, by the way. So you're 8,000 feet elevation when you're up on top of the cliff, you know, up there where you're going to be hunting, 8,000, like 8,300 feet, I think it was. And yeah, a mile flat walk, like it's AKA, again, coming from Montana and hiking, you know, 3 miles into some of the spots that we go, and up and down and everything else. Like, this isn't that. This is different, you know. So I think the land manager referred to it as a gentleman's hunt, and I felt like a gentleman there. So a rugged gentleman at that. It was good. But yeah, man, everything was super quiet, and it was like right then that it kind of sunk in, like, oh wow, like this is kind of cool. And then you start getting those feelings of, you know, I kind of wish someone was here to enjoy it with me, or I wish there was someone to talk to. And it's amazing in our world, like at least for me, like I'm in constant communication with so many people on a daily basis. Like my phone doesn't stop ringing basically from 7:30 in the morning most days till almost 6 at night most days. My wife, obviously, she's a chatterbox. If you've never got a chance to meet her, dude, and I get a full a full synopsis of her day every day. I mean, you're just constantly jam-packed with communication. You don't really realize it because we're just surrounded by it so much. And on top of that, Facebook posts and everything else. And this was like dead silent, no cell signal. I mean, it's a weird settling in process. Your head almost doesn't like it. My head didn't. And yeah, so I'm like, well, I better keep myself busy then, you know, keep your mind off it so you're not getting bored or whatever. And so I got all this stuff laid out how I wanted it in the cabin, kind of, you know, made sure I knew where everything was in there as far as extra, you know, TP or extra paper towels or whatever is going on. Kind of made sure I had a game plan. If I get something down, you know, have everything organized and ready to rock and roll so you can manage it and process it, do what you got to do as fast as possible with the coolers and ice and all this stuff. So anyway, yeah, kind of ran around camp, and he left about 1:00 and he said, be in the stand by 4. So that was kind of the game plan. So I had 3 hours. I needed to get stuff ready. So I kind of went through after I got everything organized, and I went back to everything else and said, hey, you know, okay, I've got, here's, you know, got the 4-wheeler here. You know, any notes I needed on that. I got, you know, went and checked all the water stuff again, just kind of repeating what he went through to make sure I knew how to operate everything. And I wasn't gonna have to buzz up to the top of the hill and call him and ask him a bunch of questions after he just taught me everything. So kind of got all that stuff laid out. They actually had an ozonics unit there in the cabin that one of the guys had left from a previous season. I've never used that before, but the guy, the land manager there, was all about it. And told me, yeah, man, go ahead and let's, you know, if you want, charge those batteries up with that solar pack. So I went and did that, and was planning on taking an ozonics out with me. And yeah, so it was going to be kind of cool. Never getting to use one of those, but I've seen them work on TV 1,000 times. So I'm a believer in them without ever having owned one. So I did that, and I went and ran my truck for a while. I've got a little miniature plug-in scent crusher ozonics thing in there as well. So I went ahead, threw all the clothes I was going to wear, and ozoned them in the truck for a bit. And yeah, I kind of sat down. I read about a half chapter of this book that I'm reading right now called The Immortal Irishman about Thomas Meagher. He's a guy, grew up in Ireland, Irish revolutionary, and ended up being a Civil War hero out here, first governor of the territory of Montana. And yeah, some mysterious stuff around his death. Cool story. But anyway, I'm not going to get into that. We're telling a hunting story right now. So I read some books, just kind of keep my mind off things. And after about 30 minutes or so, of my truck running with the ozone going. I said, you know what, let's get up there. So went out, got dressed, got all my stuff on, hopped on the 4-wheeler and buzzed up to the main gate for my first evening sit. And the excitement I was feeling buzzing up that hill, dude, it was pretty cool. Had my bow on me, got the jacked bow gear sling on there, or jacked gear bow sling. Yeah. Anyway, if you haven't checked those out, definitely do. They're huge. If you're hiking, they're awesome. If you're riding a 4-wheeler with your bow, they're awesome. Your bow's not bouncing off the 4-wheeler rack. Well worth it. Well worth it. So check those guys out as well. All veteran owned company. Super cool. Shameless plug here for the vet guys. But yeah, man, headed up the hill. And one side note here. So when I was hiking in, when we were up there earlier that day, the guy had told me that there is a landowner that owns an adjacent piece of property that can access that property through that road. So always leave that gate open. And if you see basically a dark colored truck, I can't remember the make or model that he told me, there's a gentleman that drives that and he has full access to be on there. Just make sure, call me if he's not just staying on the roads, because that's his access point or whatever. So, okay. So whenever you see something like that or hear those things, make sure you're on the lookout, dude. I've actually gotten hunting permission on property when I was a park ranger in Virginia, because we were keeping an eye on this guy's property, and I'd let him know when any vehicle that wasn't his was parked on his property. They had a lot of issues with guys like letting their dogs out there to run deer, stuff like that. And he actually gave me permission to hunt his property because I was keeping eyes on it. So I've always kind of made a mental note of that. Well, anyway, I'm about halfway. I guess I was about a quarter mile from the 4-wheeler. Walk into the stand. It's about a 3/4 mile walk to the first stand there. And there comes a truck up behind me. I was like, no way. Like the very first time I'm in here, I didn't expect to see a truck probably all week because he's just got cattle running over there. But yeah, here's a truck and it's 2 kids pulling a horse trailer with horses saddled up. And I was like, they could either be hunting or they could be, maybe there to run cattle or whatever. I don't know. So I let them pass and took a moment, because it was super hot, like 80 degrees, to kind of cool my body down a bit in the shade and just try not to sweat as much as possible, keep the scent down. But yeah, shot a quick text over to the land manager and just said, hey man, I know you told me this is the truck that had access here. Just wanted to see if he's got kids or whatever. A vehicle with a trailer and horses and 2 kids just drove through. And he said, was it a young guy and a girl? And he said, yep, it's probably a son and daughter. You're good to go. But regardless, it's always good to check, because I don't own that property. I'm just basically a steward of it for the week. And so keep good graces and make sure you're keeping out on things like that when you get those opportunities. But yeah, man. So that was that. So like I said, I cooled off for a couple minutes there. I was making a pretty fast hike in there. It was, I was excited. I wanted to get there quick, but to the same effect, when you're sitting a stand, you have a very hard time playing the wind. You're at the mercy of what the wind's doing. And up there, I didn't really know which direction the elk were going to come from. I just knew that the wind was going to blow my scent somewhere. So the less scent you have, the better. So got in there. I think I ended up making it to the stand. I probably parked the 4-wheeler at 310, got to the stand about 335, 340, somewhere in there. So made a pretty quick walk of it and sprayed myself down one last time. I brought a bottle of Olympus Shield Hunt spray, sprayed myself down one more time at the bottom of the stand and climbed up the stand, got my harness all attached, and then sprayed myself down one last time, stuck my spray in my backpack, got my bow all settled up, got the arrow on, did a couple test draws. I ranged a bunch of stuff around the stand there and we were ready to rock, man. Like it's game time now. So the first thing I kind of wanted to do when I was in the stand was get an idea of like the dominant wind, the predominant wind direction there. So it was swirling for sure. When it's hot like that and you're in higher elevation, any little change in temperature or, just it really, there's a lot of factors that come into it. The roll of the land and the weather conditions at the time and the heat and the cooling off and all those different things, they all change that wind direction at literally a moment's notice. Like you can be having a 50-mile-an-hour wind one direction and next thing you know, it's blowing at your back the opposite direction. It's pretty crazy. And it was very, very breezy that day. So I'm just thinking to myself, scent control is huge here, but I really can't control this. And it was literally swirling all around me. Every couple of minutes, it seemed like it was changing direction. So I was trying to run the ozonics and the guy had told me that you basically want to run an ozonics facing the downwind direction of you, kind of over the top of you. So basically what's happening is it's pushing out ozone. The ozone is falling and catching your scent particles, 10, 12 feet past where you're sitting and dragging them to the ground at a very fast rate. So basically it's like dumping your scent onto the ground instead of letting the wind carry your scent downwind with it. And so I messed with this 3 or 4 times in a span of probably a half an hour, changing the direction of that ozone and stuff. And finally I was just like, you know what, I'll just leave it. The dominant wind direction seemed to be going, blowing southeast. And so I just left it that direction. And the good thing was there's water down there as well. So I know the elk very well could have been on the water anyway, about a half mile from me or whatever. So the scent could carry that far. So better just plug that up. And, that's where they're going to want to go regardless, probably after a hot day baking in the sun or laying in the hot shade. So we sat up there and texted everybody, hey, in the stand for the first time, because they got like one bar of 4G up there. So let the wife know, father-in-law know, let people know it's game time, guys. We're sitting in the stand now. Here we go. And it was, the 2.5 hours of sitting there to start from about 4:00 till about 6:30. The wind was always changing. So I was just doing my best to sit still, not move a lot, keep my, body temperature controlled and make sure that I wasn't sweating a bunch or whatever. Cause it was hot. I mean, the sun was baking and stuff. So, that was pretty boring 2.5 hours sitting there in the stand, but, I didn't have a ton of expectations as far as what I'm going to see. And then 7:00 hit and I'm like getting to that point, like, okay, got about an hour and a half ish of light, probably an hour of shooting light. And this first evening is not going to probably close out. So I'm taking pictures of the sun filtering through the trees and just kind of enjoying myself up there. And, it's real now. So, game time's tomorrow, probably not going to see anything tonight. And then we're going to, get after it hard here in the morning and sit in the same stand early. And no more than I just thought that. I actually just stuck my phone in my pocket from playing checkers and I hear a loud branch break. And when you hear that in the elk woods, something's coming. So it's not like, elk aren't, they can be very, very quiet, but they're not like a quiet animal like a deer where they come through the woods and they're just stealth mode the whole time. Like they're big animals. They break branches when they step on them like we do. They crack through twigs and branches and stuff on their way through stuff. They plow through stuff. They're just not quiet, but I didn't hear any cow sounds. So usually if there's cows in the area, they'll be talking. But I heard a loud branch break, like just kind of off to the northeast of where I was at. It sounded like it was about 100 yards away. And sure enough, I look up there, I get my bow standing upright and I see an elk belly coming underneath the oak brush. And dude, my heart just started thumping. I thought for sure I was going to be seeing a cow elk, just hopefully a herd was coming through, or maybe a handful of them were all grouped up together. And, so I kind of get there. I stand up in the stand real quick. I get my Tacticams rolling. I've got one wide angle facing me. I've got my regular 5.0 facing out. And I feel the cameras turn on. I'm like, sweet, we're going to get some elk on film. And clip my release onto my bow because I knew basically all the ranges in that direction were anywhere from 15-yard shots to about 40-yard shots was going to be my furthest in that direction. And I see antlers. The first gap that this elk could have walked through, I see big antlers on it. And I'm like, oh, dude, that's a big bull. He comes through the gap and I don't have a cow call on me. Like a dummy, I should have had a cow call with me, but I didn't even bring a call with me. Bugle tube, call, nothing. But it's a different type of hunt too. You're stand hunting. You're not, trying to get them to come to you or communicate with them a ton maybe. But anyway, at that time, I'm like, I need a cow call because he ended up walking to the trail that was coming by the stand, but 80 yards away. And that's where he stopped. And he's looking around, just kind of checking both directions. The Ozonics had actually died like an hour earlier. Like the battery I had in it wasn't fully charged, I guess. And so I'm just praying. At this time I have a pretty steady southeast wind and he's still upwind of that, but barely. Like he needs to come on this trail. Otherwise he's catching my wind and he's going to be gone. And so I kind of turned my head and you'll see it in the video. I turned my head off to the side and kind of cut my mouth. And I just make a couple of cow calls like, meow, 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 just real soft just to let him know there's like something up there. And hopefully he's going to come check me out. Well, I see his antler tips, the back ends of them. I see them kind of whip my direction. So he heard me and I'm thinking, okay, here we go. And then instead of coming my direction, I see the antler tips switch back the other way. And very calmly, he kind of just walks off. And I think what he might've actually done, because I thought I heard some kind of brush moving on the southeast side of me. I think he actually might've circled, which elk will do that all the time to come check the wind. They're going to see if you're an elk, if they don't see you right away or whatever. And I sounded close enough to him. He's like, I should know there's a cow there if there's a cow there. And anyway, I think he got downwind of me and just went off, whether he ran off or moseyed off, whatever. But he didn't come my direction. I waited for like 10 minutes standing there with my cameras running. No elk. The elk disappeared. So now I kept watching my back. thinking maybe he'll pop out behind me, but I think the wind wasn't right for it. And I'm sure he could catch a whiff of me no matter how careful I was being with my scent. So busted elk, but hey, you know what? We're sitting in the stand for about 3 hours and we see a bull elk. This is going to be an awesome week. I mean, all I can think about now is sweet, check that off. I got the adrenaline pump, kind of taken care of. It's always good to get that feeling like in and out. So you kind of have a little bit of an expectation of everything else. This is my first elk bow hunt, being that close to an elk. So a lot of factors come into play there, and excitement's one of them. But anyway, so I settle back into my seat, and my legs kind of finish their shaking, because there's pretty exciting. And then I'm thinking, okay, very cool. Saw my first bull elk, but you know what? That's probably what I'm going to see tonight. He wasn't with a group of elk, so he's probably a lone bull, satellite bull, just out checking the area and heading down to water now. And yeah, hopefully we hear some bugles, I guess, was kind of what my plan was then. So I'm settling in, thinking that was it for the evening. And then it gets to be about 7:30 ish. So that bull came in right around 7:30 rolls in. And all of a sudden I hear like heavy, brushy kind of footsteps to the northwest of me. And which my first thought was, I had to really stop and listen because it wasn't like cracking branches or anything. It sounded like something was coming through there. So I'm looking up there. I don't see anything, but I grab my bow anyway. I stand up. I get my cameras rolling again. And then all of a sudden I see antlers on the other side of this oak brush at about 75 yards coming dead my direction. And dude, that adrenaline feeling just happened again. Everything started rushing in like, oh my gosh, this bull's coming in perfect. He's dead upwind of me. He's coming right to me. And hopefully he's going to walk this trail right in front of me and I'll have a 15-20 yard shot, but so in this part of Colorado, the bull has to have, I think, 4 points on one side or a 5-inch brow tine. So eye guard, brow tine, whatever you call them. Basically the points that come straight out over their nose, it's got to be at least 5 inches on those. So a way for them to manage the age structure of the bulls that are being taken. So anyway, I see antlers. I get kind of excited because they're way above his back, but I can't tell what he is because he's behind this oak brush. Well, he keeps doing these like super dodgy movements. He'd like all of a sudden he'd lock all of his legs up, and I'm just seeing this kind of parts and pieces of him behind this oak brush, and he'd like turn like he was going to go the other direction, and then he'd look the other way and he'd start coming back towards me again. And he was just acting super spooky. So I don't know. I'm assuming, I know he wasn't catching my wind. There's hardly a chance it was. I was getting about a 5-mile-an-hour wind from him to me. Very, very little chance. And the road that I walked in on, he was probably 5-10 yards off of, so he could have been smelling maybe some ground scent, but even that was downwind of him. So it would have been strange for him to catch my wind. But I'm almost wondering if that bull that was in there 20 minutes before him had maybe they'd gotten into it, or that was a much more dominant bull. Very good chance this bull could have been getting pushed around or beat up or whatever. And he was just maybe cautious as heck about that guy being there. His big brother is bullying on him. So anyway, he's acting super dodgy. Well, he ends up coming out, and as soon as he clears this oak brush, I see those eye guards on him. I'm like, dude, legal bull, this is game time. He's wide out in the open. He's about 50 yards at this point. Shootable distance for sure. I've got a spot hog 2-pin sight now, and I actually switched to that because a couple of years ago when I got my first animals here in Montana chasing things with bows, I'd gone to a single pin movable sight. And man, there's a lot of things that got to go right when you're bow hunting anyway, but having to range and then go up and dial a sight for an exact yardage, it adds another 2 seconds if you're good at it. And that 2 seconds has made or like basically broken a bunch of hunts that I've been on, especially for antelope, but even deer. A couple of times I just didn't even get a chance because I had to go through that process, and that was just enough for them to move past a shooting lane or see you moving or whatever. It worked out a couple of times, but both times it worked out. It just happened to be that they were at a range that my sight was already basically set for, or very close to it. That's where my deer happened. So on this one, I've got a 2-pin sight now. So your top pin is an exact yardage, and then your bottom pin, based off whatever your top pin is set to, is basically like 15 yards or 20 yards past that, depending on the distance. So it's set for, you have multiple reference points now, which I was so glad I did, because when that first bull came in, the first thing I did after he left was say, okay, he was at 80 yards, but my average shot in here is going to be 25 or 35 or something like that. So I set my top pin to 25 yards because anything basically 25 yards or closer, I can adjust for that. that reference point is good, but I wanted that bottom one to be past 40. So on this site, it was like 25 and 45 is what the reference points were. And anyway, this bull, I thought he was going to come around this oak brush and come right down in front of me and give me a 20-yard shot, like right on the trail. It's what he acted like he wanted to do. Well, right as I thought he was going to do that, I had my release on the string. I'm ready to start drawing. As soon as he goes behind this tree and between me and him, he locks his legs up again. He whips his head all over the place. And then I'm thinking, did he smell me? Like, what's going on? And he just decided, I'm not going to take the trail. I'm going to go behind the tree stand. Don't know why. So I'm like, okay, that sucks. So I had to unclip my release because I hadn't ranged anything that direction, because I assumed that my shots were going to be basically over my right shoulder. If I was going to shoot anything behind me, it was going to be over my right shoulder or all out in front of me, basically. And this was the one direction I hadn't ranged anything. So I end up having to kind of turn, pivot without him seeing me, and he's wide out in the open. So I'm thinking, I got to move slow. I don't want him to catch my movements. And now I'm thinking my rangefinder better not bounce off the buckles on this harness, because he's going to hear that and take off. So I slowly slide my rangefinder out, and I'm pivoting, and I speed up as soon as he goes behind a tree so I can get my body the angle it needs to be for the shot and everything else. I quick range one giant piece of oak brush that's 45 yards and one down at the bottom that was 30. Like, basically there's a walking path, between all the brush that more than likely he was going to take. Hit the far 145, hit the close 130, put that bino or the rangefinder back in my my harness, get my string clipped just in time for him to clear all this. Sure enough, perfect. He walks right into that opening. But the problem is like, so when you're stand hunting, I've grown up hunting whitetails out of a tree stand, and when you move, like, you need to have something. Best case scenario, you have something between that deer's eyes and you, because they're going to look up. If they see movement, they're going to look up, lock onto you, you're done. Well, this guy, I have nothing. He's out in the open. He can definitely see me if he doesn't see me already. And I have to figure out how to draw my bow. So I'm just like, okay, but he doesn't stop moving. He doesn't act nervous. He's just kind of on a mission now to walk that path. So while he's moving, I just slowly start drawing my bow, and he doesn't see me. Like, I don't know how, because basically he was eye level with me with where he was out on the hill, and he doesn't see me. So then get the full draw. I get the pins on his chest, and I stop him just like I would a whitetail, man. I was like, meh. And I one mat, and that was it. And then he stopped. He whipped his head towards me, and no more than he just got still settled. I had the pins. Basically, I knew he was between 30 and 45 yards. So I just sandwiched I put the center black bar of my sight between the two reference points, dead center of his chest, squeeze the trigger, and man, it sounded like I hit a freaking tree with an arrow. Just super loud crack. He kind of does this little skip jump thing and like walks, or he takes off running. And then this is kind of where it all got blurry. So I had so much adrenaline going. I mean, I just arrowed my first bull elk. I was pretty sure I put a good shot on him. And anyway, through all the commotion, I'm sitting there watching him. And this is the part where the video, I actually got a little too excited. I aimed the camera right over the top of his back, so I couldn't see him when he stopped. But he stops in this opening, which was perfect, about 50, 60 yards-ish from the tree stand. And he kind of puts his head down a little bit. He shakes his head, but I don't see blood like on either side of the elk. And I had seen both broadside views of him, left and right, perfect, and there was no blood. So at first my head's going like, what the heck? Well, then I hear him, he coughed a couple of times, which is always a great sign. It means you probably got lungs. That's why he's coughing. And so then I'm feeling like, okay, cool, I'm going to watch him go down, because I hit him. That sounds like a long shot. He's probably going to go down. Well, then he kind of picks his head up, looks around, and just walks off casually, like walks off into the oak brush, just basically 60 yards further up the way he was, I guess, up from the place I shot him and into the brush, going the same direction like he was already going. So now I'm sitting there like, okay, I need to listen, be quiet. Let's listen for a crash. I was hoping he was going to walk in that oak brush and fall over, and they're a big animal again. They'll break branches, all that good stuff. So I get up, I put my bow down, I'm listening. I don't hear a crash. And next thing you know, this was actually super cool though. I'm kind of excited. I'm kind of concerned. And all of a sudden the entire top of this hill that I'm on hunting just lights up with elk bugles. The elk's bugling directly to the direction the bull went from me. There's one bugling back behind me. There's one bugling down on probably on or in one of the two ponds that's down below me in this property as well. There's probably 6 or 7 bulls just all firing off. And like, if you've never heard that in the elk woods, especially when you're hunting them, dude, it's one of the coolest sounds ever. But this was just super cool. I've never been immersed in like a group of bulls like that. So that was super neat. So that was exciting. But again, I was kind of concerned. Well, I hear like one more cough in between these bugles that go on from the direction the bull went. And I never saw him come out of the oak brush. There's a couple other openings I should have been able to see him come out of. He just never did. And so I'm thinking, man, maybe he just went further up into that other property or whatever. But I didn't know I didn't know where he was in terms of property line. So there's a fence line up there for that neighbor's property that in my head, I thought he was on our side of on the property I'm hunting, but I wasn't sure. And so anyway, it gets kind of dark. I get my headlamp on, I get all my stuff together, put it all in my pack and whatever else, lower everything to the ground, get down. And I texted both land managers, letting them know, hey, I just shot my first bull elk. The shot felt good, sounded good. He coughed, but I didn't hear him go down. And the only text I get back before I get down from the tree stand where I don't have signal anymore was that, if you heard him coughing, he's done. He's somewhere around there. I've shot enough of them. He's down there. That was the guy who invited me down and texted me that. So that gave me a little bit of confidence. So I walked over. First thing I'm going to do is look for my arrow. Hey guys, Aaron here, taking a break from the podcast episode really quick to remind you to go check out www.lightthefireoutdoors.com. That's the website for Light the Fire Outdoors, as well as the Praying and Slaying podcast. And there you're going to find all kinds of faith-based blog content rooted in hunting stories like you're hearing here on the podcast. You're going to find all the podcast episodes, as well as all of our video content that's going to be uploaded regularly throughout our season as we get videos to put together. You also can check out our shop. Every purchase from lightthefireoutdoors.com goes back to veterans, conservation, and local outreach ministry here in our local communities. So you can get yourself a new Blackhound optic for the upcoming season. Those have been rolling out the door here like crazy. Lots of new customers getting those in their hands and loving them. You can also snag yourself a merino wool beanie. I love to wear them when it's super cold out on these Montana hunts. Keeps your head nice and toasty. Doesn't stink because it's made of merino wool, so you can sweat your butt off and not let the animals know you're there, as well as support Light the Fire Outdoors. And of course, we have our 4-inch vinyl decals. You can stick those all places that accept decals. Truck windows, beer fridges, meat coolers, all kinds of places I like to stick mine. But either way, check all those things out, guys. All of your support goes right back to those 3 things: veterans, conservation, and outreach out here in our local communities. So with that, let's get back to the episode. So I walk over to the stand. I pace off about 37, 38 yards, and I'm looking for my arrow and don't see it right away, but I see a track where you can tell the bull had kicked up. And so I walk over to that track and I just scanned around a bit, and sure enough, right there, 5 yards past where that elk was standing, is my arrow. And for a bow hunter, what you want to see on an arrow is like just a nice solid red coat of blood, preferably, bubbles in it, maybe oxygenated from lungs or whatever. But if you got a lot of blood on an arrow, that's a very, very good sign usually. And so the arrow at first inspection didn't get me too excited. It actually kind of sunk me a little bit because the arrow itself, it had blood all the way down it from broadhead to the fletchings, but it wasn't like a lot. It was more of like a smear of blood, which is okay. But a lot of times what happens if you shoot a whitetail like that, you probably gut shot him or shot him low, shot him high, somewhere where it's not the greatest shot in the world because you don't have a ton of blood there. And the second thing I noticed is there's 0 blood where he was standing, 0 blood on the first few tracks that I can find that were his, where he ran out. And that's, again, but I didn't see blood on him anyway. And so now I'm like wondering like, okay, well, for sure I hit him, but I'm not seeing blood. I'm not seeing blood on the ground. I started getting concerned because there's no worse feeling than thinking you hit something with something like that, and then you're not going to kill it, or it's not going to die now, or you're not going to find it. A lot of things go through your head. So I start looking around. I can't find anything. Well, in my head through this whole time, it's amazing what your memory will do, or what your mind will lock onto for details that may or may not be exactly what happened. And so in my head, I remember him doing his little skip. I remember him running, but I thought in my head, I had painted this picture that he just basically pivoted on himself and ran off into this clearing that I knew he stopped in. Well, there's a clearing on the other side of the fence and this other property, and there's a clearing on this property I was hunting. And in my head, I thought he was on our property and that he had went to the fence line and walked the fence line into the brush again. So I'm over there in this clearing looking all over the place, no blood. I can't find any like hard moving tracks because he still would have been running or stopped there. There's no like cough. If he was coughing, I was hoping I was going to find blood from that. There wasn't any blood. I'm like, dude, this isn't good. And so then I walk over to the fence line. I'm like, well, I'll walk this fence line a little bit into the brush where he was. Hopefully he's like laying there, but I'll go super slow, trying not to spook anything. Cause last thing I want to do is bump it out because they'll go forever, like way further than a whitetail will. And, so anyway, I go to the fence line. I start walking down the fence line. Nothing, no blood, no anything, not even on the brush or anything. I'm like, holy crap. So I walk back to the tree stand, climb up a bit, get cell signal. I text him and say, hey, I'm not finding any blood. The arrow has blood on it, starting to get kind of nervous. And again, the guy texted me and said, dude, if he was coughing, you're good. I've killed enough of these things. I guarantee you he's within 100 yards of where you last saw him. And he said, call me if you want my input. So I clicked send. I didn't know if it was gonna, or click the phone icon. I didn't know if it was gonna go through, but it sure did. It connected. He's talking to me. He said, okay, tell me what happened. So I walked him through the whole thing again, told him he stopped. And he said, well, was he on our property? Did he jump the fence? And I said, I don't think he jumped the fence. I think he was on our property. He said, okay. He said, walk that fence line for like 100 at max, like 130 yards. He said, you're going to see him laying on that fence line if he was on our property. If he walked off that way, you heard him cough 3 times total. He's got to be there. And if not, then don't worry about it. Back out. And, the nights are getting down to like 50s, not ideal for something the size of an elk, but you know what? You can't do anything. And the last thing you want to do is bump him. Just back out and come back in the morning. I'm like, okay. So I walk over to the fence, retrace all my steps, can't find any blood. I walk that fence line super slow, super cautious, checking both sides of the fence with my headlamp, and I don't see anything. And I walk 100 yards, nothing. And I'm like, you know what? There's a big pine ahead of me, probably another 20, 30 yards. And I'm like, I'll walk up to that and see. As I'm walking up there, I actually find a big pile of elk scat that I didn't notice previously that day when we were over there. And so I'm like, well, that might be a good sign. Maybe that's a big glob of blood or whatever. It was really dark, but I walk up, it's just elk crap. And right there though, when I stop right at the base of that tree, I actually caught a whiff of elk. You can smell elk. There's a real musky smell. Any elk hunter that's been out in the woods or whatever, you can smell them. It's not like a deer. So when elk have been in an area, because you will smell that the fact that they were there, it's like a musky kind of smell. Well, I caught a whiff of that. And at first I thought it was like coming from the crap on the ground. And so I'm like, okay, that's pretty fresh if I'm smelling it. But I turned my head into the wind. Again, that southeast wind was blowing. I turned my head into the wind, trying to check if it was an upwind smell, which would have been good because if he's on that other property, it could have been him. The smell goes away. I turn around to leave. I catch a whiff again. And so I'm like, what the heck? So I whip my head back into the wind and nothing. I'm like, okay, smelling elk is good. But I said, I could be smelling a live elk too. I mean, I probably should get out of here so I'm not blowing everything out of here. So I end up saying, you know what? I'm heading back to the cabin. And so I head down, I get to the gate. There's a little bit of cell service at the gate. I text both land managers and my wife, said, hey guys, backing out tonight, left the arrow where the arrow was. I stuck it in the ground and walked 130 yards, no blood, no nothing. And just coming back in the light. And so I head down to camp for the first and only time I've ever had to leave an animal overnight. Not a great feeling. I've never done that before. And with something the size of an elk, the only thing I can think of is like how much meat I'm going to lose, because they trap a lot of heat in there and it'll make the meat go bad within hours. So not a great feeling. So I pull up down to the cabin on the 4-wheeler. I pack some stuff in my truck, kind of get everything reorganized again. All these details are rolling through my head and I'm like, man, I just can't believe I didn't find blood. I get it. I mean, I've seen tons of, outdoor TV shows and stuff where they're like, oh yeah, we had to back out and come in overnight and I couldn't sleep and this and that. And you're just like, okay, I get it. But, when you watch on TV too, you see all the other details. Like, I think that was a good shot. I think you're fine, or whatever. But in this case, like my mind is telling me what I saw, but I can't remember exactly everything. And so I finally get into the cabin and I brought a celebratory bottle of Maker's 46 for me, hopefully with the hopeful ambition that I'm going to kill my first elk. It was like something that I could have a celebratory drink with. And I said, you know what? I might need this just to go to go to sleep tonight. So I went over, poured myself a little Dixie cup shot of it, and started reading my book. I'm like, I'll get my mind off this. I'll just read my book and sip on this whiskey till I get tired, and then I'll pass out and hopefully wake up the next morning and get after it early, first light. And so anyway, the whiskey's doing its job, sipping on that slowly, and then I'm trying to read this book, and like literally I'll get done reading like 2 pages, and then I realize in my head I haven't thought about what I'm reading at all for the last like 10 minutes. So I all these details of this hunt are going through my head, and I'm like, gosh dang it, like this is real. You legit can't focus, you can't sleep, whatever. And so after like a handful of pages, I decided to flip all the way back, move all the way back to where I started reading, put the bookmark in there because clearly I'm not comprehending anything I'm reading. And I'm laying there just thinking about the elk, and I shut the generator off so the lights go out. And then it dawns on me like, Aaron, you dummy, you've got a Tacticam. You filmed this whole thing. Go back and watch the footage. Like that's literally half the benefit of a Tacticam is you have live in-person footage of exactly what happened from your bow's perspective. Like perfect. So I ran out to the truck real quick, grab my bow, grab the Tacticam off my bow and bring it in, and turn on the Wi-Fi, connect it up to my phone, and I go to my video. And it's sweet. It's like not as much footage as I would have liked, but it's all the perfect moments. So the cameras come on, you see the bull kind of walking out you see the bull come into frame as I bring the bow around to start working on the draw process I talked about earlier. And then as I draw, it settles on the bull walking. You see me stop him. I let that bow relax just a little too much in the shot, so it kind of comes up over him. But you hear the crack on the video, which is always a good sign because it was really loud in my ears. But if that camera caught that same sound, like I know I at least hit a rib or a couple ribs or whatever. So that's always a good sign. And then the bull, he's running off, but I catch him. He goes around this oak brush, which I didn't know he did. I thought he just pivoted on himself and took off, which that totally changes everything. So I actually never even checked his actual trail for blood, which was comforting in my mind because I'm like, okay, I wasn't even looking in the right spot. He went around this oak brush, and the last place you see him before I told you I kind of shot the video right over the top of him where he stopped in this opening and was coughing was him landing on the other property. So he jumped the fence behind that oak brush and he landed. His front legs impacted right as he came back into frame in the video on the other side of their fence. So now this changes everything. Like I never even checked his actual blood trail, which was very comforting to me. You can't hear him cough in the video, but I know he was stopped there for at least 10, 15, 20 seconds, whatever it was. And then the last spot where I noticed I was shooting the camera over the top of him, I pointed the camera down and I caught him walking into the oak brush on their property. So I knew exactly the bush he walked behind when I last saw him. So now it totally changed the entire picture. And it was amazing to just see how your mind will tell you, this is exactly what happened. I'm positive of it. I'm here. I'm looking. He had to be standing like right here. And having this video asset from Tacticam was like a total game changer because I wasn't even on the right path, dude. Like I saw his tracks. Yes. I knew he stopped in a clearing. Yes. But where those things actually took place, that video told me exactly what happened. And it totally eliminated all these things that had just apparently been made up in my head of what had happened. So that gave me a little bit more reassurance. I'm like, I wasn't even looking in the right place. I know he's on their property, not on this property. It was like one of those things at that point. I think my heart knew, okay, I killed him. He's done. But my head was like kind of relieved, but it also kind of sucks because I'm definitely going to have to wait overnight. And all I'm thinking about at this point now is like, okay, we'll find him. We're going to lose a bunch of meat. And I don't like that. That doesn't sit right with me. It doesn't sit well with me. I mean, that's part of an elk, especially, man, they're a big animal. That's a lot of waste. But at the end of the day, you can't do anything about it. We need landowner permission to get over there. And, it's the long and short of it. So I sipped the rest of my whiskey, the shot or whatever I had there, and went back to sleep. And it was one of those nights, man. I'd sleep for like 2 hours. I'd start dreaming about it. I'd wake up. I'd sleep for like another hour, start thinking about it, wake up. And so it was just off and on, off and on. And finally my eyes opened and there was gray light coming through the windows. It's time to get up, man. I'm like, okay, I can't sleep anymore. There's daylight here. So I get up and I'm kind of, I'm making myself my morning routine stuff with my Thrive Shake and this and that, trying to just stay calm, go through your routine, keep your mind clear. You don't need to rush out there. And Anyway, about that time, I hear a motor like coming somewhere up or down the road. And in my head, I thought maybe the landowner had gotten in there at dark and was coming out or something. And I look out through the window, and the land manager from down in town, he had actually come up on his four-wheeler, and he had just pulled in like right at, like, it was probably just before 7 o'clock. And I was like, perfect. So I threw my shirt on and um, got my bow and got some other stuff out of the cabin quick. And I walked out to go meet him. He's like, hey, he's like, I figured you could use a hand helping find him. And I said, actually, I said, I was going to go up and call you last night, but I said, I didn't want to wake everybody up. It was getting kind of late. But I said, he's on the other side of that fence. And he goes, really? He's like, how do you know? And I said, well, because I watched my video and he's over there. That's where he went. He said, oh, okay. Well, he's like, I'm glad I came out then. He said, I figured I'd just help you before work anyway. But so he had an extra set of eyes, but he said, if that's even better. He said, if he's over there, that's probably why you didn't find him. I said, yeah. And so he ended up, we got up to the hill where he had cell service. He got a hold of a guy to get permission over there. We're good to go. We can go look now. So we go from where in the video now, I went to where he jumped the fence. It was a natural low spot in the fence. So the elk went right there instinctively. No blood on either side though. So now it's still, now again, these like mental games are coming. There's no blood trail. We're not finding anything, but you can see where his footsteps landed. You can see where he ran off and stopped. And we're standing there. We're in no blood, like zero blood. And so you can tell the land manager is kind of getting frustrated at this, because obviously he's really hoping to find a blood trail, pick up a blood trail and go find this elk, like mission one. And we're not getting any clues to help us. And I said, well, there's no blood here. This is for sure where he was standing. He's like, he was coughing here. I was like, yep. And he said, yeah, there should be like some kind of blood spray or something. And I said, I know, but nothing. And I said, but he walked behind this oak brush right here, like for sure in the video. This is where he walked behind the oak brush and disappeared. He's like, okay, well, so we basically did like not a grid search, but he went 40 yards up from that brush and, further into their property. I was basically 40 yards from the fence and halfway between him and the fence. And we just started walking a trail right through. And so I'm following this like little cattle trail or whatever it is through there. No blood, no nothing, no tracks. And, I'm not hearing him say anything. So I'm assuming it's the same thing. And we get about 40 yards, maybe, or maybe 50 into, our walk. And I come into this little bit of a clearing that I found, was walking on my path. And I just kind of look up to the north or to the west. And I see the most beautiful sight I've ever seen. There's a golden body laying in clearing, like Mark, the land manager there, he would have walked like right into it on his path. But I just see it up there and I was like, there he is, Mark. And so he ends up meeting me and I said, look right there. And so we walked up there, man. And we got up into that clearing. You see his antlers sticking up. He's dead right there. But man, he was, I've never been more excited. I mean, that was such a cool feeling. You find this elk after all this time, you can't sleep last night, this whole night. Like, I get why those stories are the way they are, man. I mean, it is a sleepless night. A million things are going through your mind, but to have that come to be, and you got your first bull elk, one shot, double long, everything was right. It just, he didn't leave a blood trail, and we didn't know he jumped the fence. So we get up there and we take some pictures with him, and for sure, he's stiff and stuff. And priority one now is getting him out. So we get him loaded up, and we didn't want to gut him or do any of that stuff on, the neighbor's property. So we get him off the property and head over, we gut him out. And yeah, man, we have our first bull elk down with a bow, loaded on the trailer, ready to rock. So initially I had totally intended on like taking care of this elk by myself, because I also had a bear tag for that area. They had an over the counter surplus bear tag you could buy for like $100 that came with a fishing license. So I'm like, yeah, we're going to do that. And there's a lot of bears in this area apparently. And so I initially was just going to kind of do some ice on the meat and keep it cold and stuff or whatever, and process it myself over the several days at camp. But man, having left him overnight with guts in him and, all that other factors and stuff, and it was obviously going to be another hot day, we decided it's best to take him down to a meat processor in town. And so first order of business is get this thing gutted. And I've never personally seen this, man, but there was a ton of hornets and stuff down, like yellow jackets around the area, just everywhere at the cabin and stuff. A lot of yellow jackets flying around, buzzing around, doing their thing. But holy crap, dude, we opened this elk up to get him gutted, and I've never seen bees or anything swarm like this. I mean, just thousands and thousands of them just going in there, and anywhere they could land and get a hold of like elk meat. I didn't really even realize yellow jackets ate meat, but dude, they were all over this thing. So at first I'm like swatting at them and stuff, thinking they're going to sting me. I'm like, I got to stop doing that. I'm going to stab myself with my knife. And then I realized like they really don't care about me. They're literally just trying to eat this elk. And I was like, holy crap. So then I'm gutting it as fast as I can. We get all the guts out of him, get him back on the trailer of the 4-wheeler and head down to the truck. I guess it's kind of like politicians, I guess. Every yellow jacket politicians, they all want a piece of the pie. But no, anyway, so we load this guy down and we back the trailer up from the 4-wheeler up to the bed of my truck. We get him drug in there, we get him strapped down and everything. And then mission 1 accomplished. We got the elk out, we got him gutted, and now we're taking him down to town to the meat processor. I was just not going to mess around with heat and trying to ice meat down that had already been sitting for, several hours, and 50 degrees is not cold enough to keep an elk, especially as thick as they are. You're going to have a lot of heat trapped inside that animal, closer to the bone, stuff like that. So anyway, shout out to Goods Meat Processing down in Montrose, Colorado. We took him down there and dropped him off. They skinned him out for me. I'm going to do a tanned hide, the skin and stuff. I'm going to do it like a rug with it, which is pretty exciting. And then got my head and all that good stuff. But man, the elk looked really good. Actually, they got the skin off him. There was some bloodshot fat and stuff like that, but overall not bad at all. Like, and he even cut into some of the thicker chunks. Like, I don't smell anything funny, but either way, man, we'll let you know, expect to lose some, but I think you're in pretty good shape. So that was relieving. And so then it was kind of a good feeling as well, because something the size of an elk is a big undertaking, especially for one guy. My meat from my bull last year, I deboned it in camp while everybody else was hunting, and had 3 coolers full of it to deal with when I got home. And it took me a long time, like a good 3 or 4 days to get through it all by myself. And, so anyway, I figured, well, I got 3 or 4 days at camp, but I was so glad I didn't have to deal with that with the heat and everything else. So thank God for meat processors. So I just had, I told him I wanted to keep the loins, in chunks, for doing steaks and smoking and stuff like that, but everything else just grind it. Normally I'd keep some roasts and things, but just grind it. We're going to have a ton of hamburger and a few steaks, and we're going to call it good. And, so that was that, man. I told him, hey, I'm going to probably pick this up on Wednesday. I'll call you if it's going to be any later, because now my mission was bear hunting, and I'll keep that portion of this whole thing kind of short, though. I mean, it really wasn't that exciting. It was good, anticipation thinking I was going to get a bear, but nothing just came in, man. Sat in a blind. They've got a designated area for, bear hunting where the bears normally will cruise through. They get pictures on them pretty regular. Sat there for 2 days in a super hot blind, and just nothing, man. No bears, no coyotes, a few songbirds, but that was it. So I had some good time to read some books and that kind of stuff. But after a long couple of days of sweating and what I'm calling the hot box, and no bears, I just figured, well, it's time to pack up and save myself a couple of days of vacation and work time stuff. So anyway, I went back down. So Monday morning is when we dropped off the elk. Monday afternoon, I hunted for that first evening. And I sat there basically most of the day on Tuesday. Didn't see anything. So Tuesday evening, got back down to camp, got all my stuff put together and most of the camp packed up. And Wednesday morning, got up early, loaded the rest of my stuff into the truck, got the elk head in the truck, got everything situated, and headed off to the meat processor to grab my elk and hit the 14-hour drive home. A couple just quick reflections on, just having a solo hunt like that. It was kind of neat. And I almost wish in hindsight, I was glad I had, some extra time I didn't need to take vacation or whatever for, but every single day you're there and it's a totally new situation, off-grid living, which is definitely different than anything I've done before, aside from camping or whatever, but just, it's almost like you got a tiny taste of maybe some of that Western settlement lifestyle, make it your own, right? Everything works because you made it work. Stuff like that, which is really, really cool. But it's every day, every time I came back to camp, I felt a little bit more at home. And I definitely understand why these guys have this place the way they do. And what a blessing, man, to be able to get to go down there and enjoy that honey hole, enjoy their little slice of off-grid heaven. And kind of be more thankful for that. But it was really neat to kind of just even see my own mind, wrap around it a little bit more. Every time you get there, you're a little bit more comfortable, you're a little bit more at home. And I can't wait, hopefully the opportunity presents itself to go back again in the future and we get a chance to go down there and enjoy that again. I mean, just what an awesome experience. In all of 3 hours in a stand that I took 7 days to go hunt, 3 hours in, we had a bull elk on on the ground, man. Like, what a cool way to do it. And I got to thinking about it. I was talking to one of my buddies, and like every time I've hunted with a bow, like all my firsts with a bow, all my firsts in general have been very, very fast. First turkey was less than a couple hours. My first bull elk was like 15, 20 minutes into or maybe we'll say an hour into a week-long hunt. My first bull elk with a bow, 3 hours into a week-long hunt. First deer, a couple hours in a blind. Like, it was just awesome, man. So definitely a cool experience. Can't wait to get back after him. Like I said, hopefully that opportunity presents itself in the future. But either way, what a cool hunt. What an awesome experience. Thanks for checking out the podcast today, guys. This was an awesome story, man. I couldn't be more stoked to have gotten my first elk with a bow, and to have it be a nice bull on top of that. It's just icing on the cake, man. One thing it kind of reminds me, just thinking back over the story and checking out all the pictures, is that if there's one thing that's certain in life, it's that things are not going to ever happen like you expect them to happen. You know, everything from this bull being on the ground 3 hours into what I had planned for 7 days. It just reminds me that, you know what, things are going to happen on God's time, regardless of what my plans are. The best thing I can do is show up prepared and be ready for opportunities as they present themselves. Sometimes they're going to come faster than you expect. And then other times, just like having to leave that bull overnight, go through all those emotions, the ups and downs of, man, what happened? Did I get him? You know, all those different things that just spin through your head when things don't happen like you think they should have. Like in this case, when my bull had to get left overnight and me go find him the next morning, just also shows you that, you know, again, God's in control. He's got this. And as long as you put the time in, you make a good shot, you make good calls with what opportunities you're given, things are going to work out, and you're going to come home with an awesome trophy in the bag, man. And at the end of the day, God's plans are always bigger and better than what we have, no matter if they happen on our timing faster than we expect, or maybe they don't happen at all, or maybe they happen way slower than we expect. So with that, guys, I hope you have an absolutely awesome weekend. Have an awesome week. Hunting season is here. We're stoked. So make sure you get out there, keep tuning in, more content coming, and keep praying and slaying.